Thank you, madam, for giving me the confirmation. Today, I'll be dealing with two different topics, and since both the topics are not closely related, so therefore I have two different sessions. In the first session, I'll be talking about writing proposals for research funding, and for this, I will take you to the way the proposal is written. So before that, first we need to find out what do you understand by proposal. So a proposal is a plan or suggestion or an idea that is given to people so that they can think about it and also take action. It is meant for acceptance or rejection. And from this definition, we can understand that proposals could be either formal or informal. Now, formal proposals could be further divided into a research proposal or academic proposal and business proposals. Now, the research proposals or academic proposal is the first step in producing a thesis or major project. Its intent is to convince a supervisor or academic committee that your topic and approach, they are sound, so that you get approval to proceed with the actual research. Now, the business proposal is a document that you would send to a prospective client, outlining the service you are offering and explaining why you are the best person for the job. It is a document that's designed to persuade an organization to buy a product or service. Now, from this two type of proposal, we understand that it is formal, and of course, it follows a particular format, and that is most of the time it is in the written format. And so therefore, the format needs to be taken utmost care of, and we cannot deviate from the format. So the other type of proposal is they are the informal proposal. Now, the informal proposal, they are oral in nature, and so therefore they do not follow any particular format, and it can differ from person to person that how they put forward the proposal. So the best example is when a boy, asks a girl to marry him, so he can do it in a variety of ways, or in a very creative way. He can give this suggestion to the girl. Now I will be dealing in my talk. I'll be dealing with the formal proposals, and particularly I'll be talking about academic proposals. That is research proposals, where we write a proposal, or we suggest an idea in for the funding purpose, or the support from the government is sought, through these proposals. So here I'll be taking you to the types of proposals. And so the proposals could be internal, that is written within the institution, academic proposals. And when we identify a problem inside the institute and we write it, address it to the head of the institution, and offering a solution that we think is the best to solve the problem. It could also be external in nature. That is, we can identify a problem and we can write to the government agencies so that they can support us, and thus we can go forward with our research. Now, into whether internal or external, they could be solicited. That is, the customer puts forward his needs and gives an advertisement about the proposal that they want, and it could be given through through verbal means, or it could be given to the different media outlets. And the unsolicited proposal, on the other hand, is not given by the customer. It is in fact initiated by the academician, because the academician feels that he or she has an idea that could be applicable to this particular problem that he or she has identified, and therefore if he or she wants to actually write a proposal or send a proposal to this particular organization to accept his or her idea. Now, whether it is solicited or unsolicited, proposals have a common purpose. That is, the purpose is to convince others that your idea is worth for implementation. And now, today's talk, I will be dealing with the solicited proposals first, and then I will talk about the unsolicited proposal. So in solicited proposal, I will let me take you to the solicited proposal. So first we'll talk about the prerequisites of a solicited proposal. Now, the first prerequisite of a solicited proposal is the customer asks asks for a proposal, and the customer issues and requests for proposal. And then, of course, the customer demands that an extensive description is required, because we have to explain the problem and also identify the solution to the problem. And then the format is all given by the customer, and also the evaluation criteria is also stated very clearly by the customer. Now, we understand that when everything is given by the customer, it becomes easy for us to write the proposal, because we just have to follow the format. And of course, we also need to understand the needs of the customer when we are writing the proposal. And so it becomes, when it's not very difficult to write a solicited proposal. And now, let us move on to the different types of solicited proposal. So here, the different types of solicited proposals are stated. The first one is the request for proposal, that is an RFP. Now, the request for proposal is again, given by the directions for writing the proposal are given by the customer, and the specification of the customer needs are also given, and the evaluation criteria is also given. But the customer is not sure about what kind of solution they're looking forward to. So therefore, the customer is open to different kinds of solution, and we can say that the scope of this type of solution is rather vague. But then it is a blessing for the academicians, because the academicians, they can think about different types of solution. They can be more innovative and creative with the process. And as you know, there is a flexibility in coming up with different types of solution. Now, to give an example, my example that from the proposal which I wrote to ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research, identifying the problem and finding a solution to the problem. So in that particular proposal, the problem that I identified, could have been identified by many people, by many teachers, because it is a universal problem. But the solution that I have suggested, that is different. Many different people will have to come with different solution. And so the different solutions is actually, the way, a person looks at things, or the way a person can be innovative or creative in the process. Now, let us go to the next type of proposal, that is request for quotation. The request for quotation mainly deals with the cost of the particular product. So the proposal highlights or talks about the cost aspect of the product, and does not give too much of information about the customer needs, but there could be brief narratives addressing the customer needs. And then the request for bid, it is a highly competitive type of proposal, and the contracts are given on the basis of the price that is quoted by the person. And so therefore, it is a highly competitive type of proposal, that is and that could be seen, or where after the customer is very clear about his needs, about the kind of product that he is looking for. And therefore he has to identify, on the basis of price, he has to select the particular proposal. But before even he selects the proposal, the customer sees to it that he tries to identify the organization's like capability of completing the particular contract. All these things have to be identified, and so therefore there could be a one-to-one discussion with the concerned person by the customer. And so this is a very this proposal could be seen, it is considered to be a business proposal, and it could be observed in most cases. The advertisement in the newspapers also, we can see request for bid proposals. And then comes for the request for information. The request for information is basically seeked by the customer or the organization, or when they want to find information about the needs of the customer in terms of the product that the customer would like to have or like to buy, and of course the services that the customer would like the organization to provide to them. So these kind of proposal, they are merely written for information, and so they could be mostly they are unsolicited in nature, and so therefore this proposal could either be answered, or they could not be even looked into by the customer. So it all ultimately depends on how convincingly you're able to write the proposal, and how you're able to highlight the topic in such a way so that they are the customers, they are motivated to read the proposal. So having understood the types of solicited proposal, let us today I will be discussing about the request for proposal, that is an RFP, and I'll be talking about the different the steps that we need to keep in mind while writing a solicited proposal. So here I will take you to the different parts of a proposal. So there are three parts in a proposal. First part will be I'll be talking about the cover page, title page, executive summary, and the table of contents. And the second part I'll be talking about introduction, problem statement, background, and methodology. And the third part I'll be talking about resources, personnel, budget, and references. So the first part is called as the front matter. The second part is called as the main part or the core part of the proposal. And the third part is called as the back matter. So I would say that agencies or the government agencies or the Indian Council of Social Science particularly would be more concerned about the main part of the proposal, the core part of the proposal, because there, they can identify or they can understand the problem that is identified. And of course, they can also understand the solution. And on the basis of that, the first selection process would go ahead. That doesn't mean that the front matter and the back matter, they are not essential. The front matter and the back matter, both of them are essential, as these two components will help them to decide for the second round, to review the second time. And after reviewing, they might, if they are very impressed by the solution, they might suggest to the concern, to the academician, to make certain amendments, to make certain changes in the budget itself, or in the summary, or in the references. There could be certain suggestions given by the agency themselves. So today I'll be giving you the detailed understanding of all these three parts. So we'll begin with part one. So in part one, I'll talk about the cover page. So I have a sample over here. As you can see, I have mentioned the logo of the institution that I work in, and that is Pillai College of Engineering. And I'm writing a proposal that is also stated. And of course, I'm mentioning the date, on which date I'll be submitting the proposal, and it is for whom I'll be submitting to Indian Council of Social Science Research. And of course, I write the address as well. So this is the cover page. You can be very creative with the cover page, but nevertheless, I would suggest that instead of making very colorful and becoming very creative over here, we should only stick to the points over here, and not, like deal with the, the ornaments or the decoration part of the cover page. So now let us move on to the title page. The title page, as you can see, we'll talk about the proposed title. Now, the proposed title will be selected on the basis of the independent variable and the dependent variable. So both the variables, both the variables have to be identified, and they have to be mentioned in the title itself. So here in this particular title that I have selected, so this particular title, the independent variable is the games and introduction of the games, and of course the dependent variable is the effect it will have on students' learning. So that is clear from the title itself. And then I'll have to talk about the agency to whom I am submitting the proposal, that is Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. And of course, I have to write my name and the affiliating institute, the institute where I'm working, and that name also should be written. And so having said about the title page, now let us move on to the executive summary. The executive summary, we should talk about the significance or the need of the work. What is it that is important, and what is it that needs to be looked into, so that needs to be dealt with. And then I'm going to talk about the hypothesis and the major objectives, and then I'll talk about the procedure to be followed to accomplish the objectives, and then the potential impact of the work. So First, I will talk about the why, I'm writing this proposal, or how I'll be dealing with the, dealing with the proposal, or dealing with the topic, dealing with the solution, and then what it will be what is the impact of that particular solution, what impact it would have on the people, on the subjects, on the students, or on the society on the whole. So here I have a sample for you, the executive summary. And as you can see, I've highlighted the why, how, and what. So why I'm writing this proposal, it is because I feel that there is a necessity for the students to communicate effectively in English, and that is not to be seen in the classrooms or in real life situation also, where the students go for interviews, appear for interviews, they are not able to speak fluently, or they're not able to speak, appropriately, and there's a lot of hesitation. And so therefore the problem could be because the way the subject is introduced in the class, the way the teacher takes control of the class without assigning a task that actually requires the student to develop their cognitive skill, and also develop their thinking ability. So that is the problem that I've identified, and how I'll be dealing with that. I will be talking about three categories of games, that is implementing three categories of games, that is information gap, reasoning gap, and opinion gap. And at the end of the semester, then I'll be taking the interviews, one-to-one interviews, and according to the feedback, I will ascertain whether all the games introduced were engaging and effective in terms of learners' participation and acquisition of skills. So the games will serve a dual purpose of engaging the learners academically, and also help them to overcome writing difficulties, think independently, and become more confident in communicating in real life situations. Now, let us go to the table of contents. So in the table of contents, as you can see, I have included all the aspects that I have while writing the proposal. So I have included even table of contents. So that is important. So we have to include all the aspects. So all the topics should be covered in the table of contents. And then if you can notice that, the front matter, it is written in Roman numerals, as you can see over here. It is written in Roman numerals, whereas the main part, that is the main body, main topic, it is written in Arabic numerals, and also the back matter, it is also written in Arabic numerals. So that we have to make a note of. And the most important thing that we have to make note of is we have to maintain the numbering classification. So if we are writing topic 1 over here, that is introduction, we have written topic 1. So under topic 1, what are the subtopics? We have to number it as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. And this uniformity should be maintained throughout. So when we move to chapter 2, it will be 2.1, and so on. So if we have further sub-classification, I would suggest that we move on to bullet points rather than including the sub-classification, because that could create confusion. So it is better to move on to the bullet points. So I would say that when we write the main topic, we can write it in all capitals. As you can see over here, I've written introduction and all capitals. But when we are writing the subtopics, which you write in the sentence case, that is the first alphabet is in capital letters. For the main topic, the first alphabet is written in capital letters. So that has to be highlighted. Now, let us find out what is the significance of table of contents. Now, the significance is that it makes a good impression, and obviously the material is arranged, it is systematically organized, and that is what we need to look for, we need to keep in mind. And of course, it sets the tone and framework of the proposal, and it provides a roadmap as well. And of course, it is easier to discuss. So it becomes easier to discuss for the reviewers, because as I told you, the first step in the review process would be to focus on the main part or the core part, where they will look for what problem has been identified and what is the solution that we are offering. So once that part is, they are convinced about the solution, and they are convinced about the problem, and they are happy with the solution, so they will keep it for the next review committee to come and review the particular proposal. So the next review committee will give importance to the front matter and the back matter, which is equally important, as I told you. So the discussion can take place whether the front matter and the back matter, they have been written properly, they have been organized properly. Now, in the table of contents, you can see that I have written appendices and the index and all that. So if it is necessary, then we write appendix. This is an optional element. It is not a necessary element to be written in proposal, because the first time when I wrote proposal, I did not mention appendices, and I did not also mention index page because it was not required, or it was I did not feel it a necessity at that particular point of time. And since it was not a long proposal for me, so now let us move on to the main part of the proposal, and I'll begin with introduction. So in introduction, we have to include what is the problem that we have identified, and also begin with a general statement, and then what is the relevance of the problem in the present situation, and of course how that is, explain the solution to the problem identified. Now, I'll give you an example from the proposal that I had written to ICSSR. So let us start with what is the problem that I've identified. You can see that I've identified that the problem is that there is a deterioration of the student's ability to communicate in real life situations, and also their ability to think independently. So that is a problem I've identified. And I have also started with a general statement so that it is very clear. So motivating students to write effectively, developing the cognitive, particularly their analytical skills, and increasing their interest in learning is indeed a challenge for language teachers. So that is the general statement that I have written. And then now I would say that we can go on to the next part, that is the why part. That is, what is the relevance of the problem in the present situation? The relevance is that this is true not only with the compulsory subject of communication skills, because that is my subject for the first year, but it is true for the other subjects as taught to the undergraduate students of engineering. So therefore, a change of approach is necessary in order to enhance the thinking capacity of the learners and improve the learning process. It is essential for teachers to first engage the learners in meaningful situations and relate the existing course material to real life situations. So that is very important according to me. And so therefore, I feel that is the relevance of the problem. Now, let us move on to the solution to the problem. So I'm saying that, if we consider all the above factors, the aim of the project is to introduce game-based. So the solution I have stated in the first sentence itself, the solution is I'll be introducing game-based learning as a teaching methodology in the language classroom. Now, what is game-based learning? So I have given you the explanation of game-based learning, and they have put forward my research questions also, that what is the need of introducing games in the classroom? Is it possible to enhance thinking ability of the students to communicate in real life situations using games as a teaching methodology? Does playing games enhance the analytical skills of students? All these other research questions that I have put forward. And of course, I have tried to also answer those research questions. Those are rhetorical questions. So I put the answers also over there. And of course, then I have shown the significance of the solution, or the importance or the relevance of the solution also, and how it will help, if I introduce game-based learning, how it will help the children on the students. So having said this about the introduction, let us now go to the problem statement. So the problem statement will claims the outline, it outlines the problem addressed by study, and then it addresses the existing gap in knowledge in the field and leads to further research. So there is a gap. There is a gap between what is actually expected from the students in real life situation and what is actually taught in the class. So that existing gap, actually creates problem, and therefore what we expect from the students we cannot find in them. And so therefore further research is required in order to find out what can be done in the class, so that the students they actually benefit, or actually they learn how to communicate in real life situations. And then it transforms a generalized problem into a targeted, well-defined problem. So the problem is generalized, that all the students are facing this type of problem. So but then I can put it in a targeted, well-defined problem in this way. Does game-based learning enhance vocabulary development, comprehending concepts, and thinking skills in undergraduate engineering students? So this is how the problem statement has to be written. And then now let us move on to the next aspect, that is the background. The background is the most important part in a proposal, because in the background we'll be justifying the solution that we have put forward, or the solution that we have suggested. And we will also try and summarize summarize, the research work that has already taken place in this particular area, and try to find out in what way we can be new, or in what way we can be unique, or what has not been done before we are trying to do, or we're trying to go further into with that particular research. So in the background, we'll talk about the rationale for the proposed project, and then we'll talk about the magnitude of the research problem, and then of course we will identify the target population, and we'll also summarize currently available data and justify the study proposed. So let me take you to the sample so that you have a clear understanding of the background. So let us start with the first part, that is a rationale for the proposed project. Now I have already said that in the solution to the problem that I'll be introducing game-based teaching methodology with the students. Now, I need to tell my audience that the games is not a new concept. To educate and train is not a new concept. It has already been used in the military and in the field of training employees in the various organizations, as said by the researchers. So incorporating games in the educational field, they became popular in the 80s with the growing use of personal computers. Okay, so here, the researchers also realized the importance of involving the learners in social interactions to enable them to become actively involved in the learning process. So therefore, I am trying to say that games have already been used by many researchers, or rather it is not a new concept. In the educational field, it became popular in the 80s. After that, also the researchers have been experimenting with game-based learning. And of course, the idea of allowing the learners to learn in social interactions is taken from Lev Vygotski's, the psychologist Lev Vygotski's work on how it is important to involve the individual in interaction with people around them, so that could lead to cognitive development. And this is also reiterated by Cole when he says that knowledge itself arises from social needs, fulfills social functions, and is tied inherently with cultural conditions. So from this overview, I can say that I begin by defining the topic to the audience, and then I identify the topic that is to be reviewed, and of course what information the audience already has about the topic. So already the audience will have that, they know that the games have been used, or the games are used, right from the childhood, the games are used, to help the learners learn. So they already know that. So then how I am going to be different, that I will tell you in the next part of the background. So now I have to summarize currently available data. Now games are therefore seen as offering educative opportunities to students, and I've put forward, how differently, they have used the game-based learning in order to find out whether there is it enhances the skills, or it enhances learners' retention, or whether it can be an engaging aspect in education. All these things I have said, but then so I have also said that the effectiveness and success of game-based learning in the area of cognitive development and understanding concepts has been experimented by many theorists. I've already said that. So now what I'm trying to say is I am proceeding by searching and researching the relevant literature on game-based learning, to what extent the game-based learning has been implemented by the different researchers, and how they've been implemented, and what was the target population that they have implemented. And then this way I'm keeping a track of my searches, of the search terms and the articles I have downloaded. I keep a track, because that is going to help me later when I write my references. And when copying quotes, to word, I make sure that I put in quotation marks and cite the sources. So after that, I go to the national status. That is, I might find out, at the national level, what kind of contribution has been made in game-based learning. Now, I find out that in 2009, there was a researcher named Kumar. He undertook a project in improving literacy in rural India, wherein they explored the role of mobile phones in expanding the reach of English language learning in out-of-school settings. So he used the mobile phones, but he specifically did not use game-based learning. He used mobile phones in order to help the children learn the language, but he did not use the mobile phones also in the classroom. He used the mobile phones in out of school settings. And so we understand that his target population were the school children. And moreover, he used the mobile phones not to introduce games, but he used the mobile phone as a means of teaching them how to learn English. So I would say that here, I have specified over here that I'll be introducing the games in the curriculum of the undergraduate students of engineering. So far, whatever review I have done of the literature, so summarize the relevant content, available data, I have found that nobody has dealt with experimenting with games for the undergraduate students of engineering. So in that way, I have been trying to move ahead with the research on game-based learning. So I have stated my target population, and I have also stated that since nobody has done this before, so it is a new area that needs to be explored. Therefore, when I am writing the background, I should be critical, and I should also be consistent, and I should see to it that it is logically structured. So I have to mention the names of the researcher as they come in a chronological sequence, and so that I maintain a consistency when I'm discussing their contribution in background. So now let us move on to the next part, that is the implications, that is the benefit to society. So how will this game-based learning benefit the society? So this study will help the learners participate and interact with their peers and give them scope to discuss and learn and clarify concepts from their peers. So we all know that peer learning is very effective. So it is from the peers that the students, they learn more rather than from the teachers, because they don't have that fear or the hesitation, to communicate with their peers or to find out, like what aspect of it that they do not understand, to clarify their doubts. So therefore, we should allow the students, to collaborate, or we should allow them, to interact with their peers in the class. So now this method will enable learners to overcome their writing difficulty, think independently, and become more confident in communicating in real life situations. This will help them in job interviews and also give them the opportunity to compete at the international level. The study will also help teachers to understand the problems. So this is how I'm trying to say. So what I'm saying is that the research will bring about changes in the teaching methodology in engineering colleges in Navi Mumbai, where it is essential for teachers to change from the traditional concept of knowledge giving to that of knowledge sharing, that is facilitator and guide. So here I have stated very clearly that my area will be Navi Mumbai. So at Navi Mumbai is not a very small area. It is quite a big area with innumerable many engineering colleges. And so I have also, specified the scope of my research. And now, when we are writing, to agencies for funding, we have to, select a large area where we can do the research, and also we have to select, samples, which is quite, quite a large sample. So I would say that selecting a large sample could be one of the criteria for the selection process. You could get your proposal would get selected only because of the sample size sometimes, because when you have a large sample, the belief is that the generalization becomes much more easier. So of course, it doesn't mean that with smaller sample we cannot generalize, but nevertheless with large sample it becomes much more easier, because we will be going to different engineering colleges. When I'm talking about Navi Mumbai, and from different engineering colleges, if I pick up students, if I take a sample of students, and obviously it will be easier for me to generalize, and that is one of the most important criteria for the selection process. So here I would say that the background is key to introduce your research topic, and it is the background, the way you write the background, that will finally determine whether the topic is you're able to persuade or convince the reviewers about the topic that you have selected and the solution that you have come up with. And so the strong knowledge of the particular topic is required, and of course thoughtful writing is needed when we write the background. Now, let us move on to the next part, that is methodology. Now, methodology, as we all know, is very important and it is very significant when we write proposals or when we do a research work. So methodology determines a plan of work, how we will be planning our in a proposal or a work or the research work. So therefore, I will explain to you stepwise. So in step one, we need to identify a problem, and that we have already done. The problem you have identified. We have to frame the research question. We have already framed the research question. We have to underline our aim. That is already done. And in step two, we need to select the type of research on the basis of research question and aim. And then step three, we have to frame a research design, that is a strategy. And the step four, we have to decide the research methodology, that is the implementation. Now, after identifying the problem and framing the research question, based on the research question, we have to frame a hypothesis. So first, let me take you to the hypothesis part. So steps for writing a hypothesis. So hypothesis, we know it is the prediction, that is logical prediction of what we intend to do or what we intend to expect. And so therefore, we will first find out how to write a hypothesis. So first we need to ask a question, and then we need to do, of course, we need to do preliminary research on the question that we have asked. And then we have to formulate a hypothesis, define the variables, that is the independent variable and the dependent variable, and write it as an if and then statement. And of course, it should be testable. The prediction should be testable. So I'll give an example of the hypothesis over here. If games enhance cognitive ability, then experimental group will show an overall improvement in test over the control group students. So this is the if then hypothesis that I've written. And so as I said, that it has to be testable. So we want to test with games. So games is testable. We can design many types of games that will enhance the cognitive ability of the students. And then I will try to find out whether it is the experimental group which will show an overall improvement, or it is a control group students, or they will not show an improvement, or it is a control group students and the experimental group students, they are at the same level. So after writing the hypothesis, I again go back to the methodology. Step one, we said that we need to identify the problem, and then on the basis of that, we have to there's a classification of research on the basis of the aim of the study, whether we'll be doing exploratory study, that is whether we'll only identify and explain the problem, or we will do a constructive study, that is we test the theories and offer solutions also, or we'll do an empirical study, that is we test the solutions mathematically. Now, depending upon the problem and depending upon the research question, you might have understood that I'll be going for an empirical study, because I need to prove, since I have both the groups, experimental and control groups, I need to prove, that introducing games, they have indeed, had a major impact on the students' ability to think cognitively or develop the thinking skills. So therefore, and that has to be proved mathematically, that is through statistical tools or through statistical analysis. And if you quantify your results, it is going to be more accurate, or the validity or the reliability of the study will be enhanced. And that is why the empirical study is necessary. And therefore, when we go to step two, there are different types of research. Of course, we have the descriptive research, that is we describe a population, situation, or a phenomenon. We have the correlational research, which studies the relationship between two variables statistically. And then we have the experimental research, which establishes cause and effect relationship between variables. So as it must be very clear to you that I have used the experimental research, where I have used the cause of what is the cause, what is the problem, what is the cause that had led to this problem, and what is the effect of the solution, and the relationship between them. I have tried to develop the relation between the independent variable and the dependent variable, and that is why my study is an experimental one. And then in step three, I'll be defining the key elements of a research design, that is the purpose of the study, the type of investigation that I'm going to do, the sampling design, So whether it is going to be a simple random sampling, whether it is going to be a random sampling, so all these things, I have to decide the method of data collection, the method of data analysis, data interpretation, and the timeline, of course. And then the research methodology, what data to collect, what data I'm supposed to collect, or who to collect the data from, how to collect the data, how to analyze the data. So whether I'm going to collect the data from the students by actually going, to the students, teaching them the game-based learning method, using the implementing the game-based learning method, and then taking a test on the to ascertain whether it has been effective, and then collect the data. Or I'm just going to, give them a questionnaire, do a survey type of research. That is all going to depend upon my, way of looking at things, of if I'm doing an empirical study, whether the survey type of research will be effective in trying to gather the knowledge. Okay, that is also very important. And how to collect the data, whether, we need to go there physically and collect the data, or it can be done to different ways, that also needs to be looked into. And how to analyze the data. So data can be analyzed either by giving it to someone, to a professional to analyze the data, or it can be done, by using a software. So whether a software is available to analyze the data, that also needs to be looked into. So all these aspects have to be looked into when we are talking about the research methodology. So all these things we need to write it down very specifically in our proposal, but we do not need to write in so much of detail. So we need to just give an overview, because the most important concern is they want to understand, what kind of sample we are going to collect, and what is the area that we are going to cover. That is the most important aspect, that the agencies are looking for. And of course, the hypothesis also, because from the hypothesis, they can find out whether, the hypothesis itself indicates that it is testable or not. So the hypothesis becomes important, and the coverage, the area that we are going to cover, and the kind of sample that we are going to collect, that becomes important for them. And what kind of games that we will be implementing, so how will I collect data, what kind of games I'll be implementing, that also, the materials that I'll be using, that also will be a concern, or matter of importance for them. So we have to give a fair idea of what kind of games that we'll be implementing, that is the materials that we'll be using in a methodology. Now let us move on to the methods of data collection. There are different methods of data collection. The first is qualitative. The qualitative data collection, it could be in the form of case studies, interviews, observations, surveys, and focus groups, and it is non-empirical in nature. And whereas the other type of data collection is quantitative, that is standardized tests, lab and field experiments, Likert scale surveys. Okay, so this is quantitative. That is, it can be mathematically proven, or the statistical analysis could be done with this quantitative data. So it is more reliable, it is more believable. So this is called as empirical data collection. And then we have the mixed method, that is, we can combine the qualitative and the quantitative data collection, and then we can make it as a combination of empirical and non-empirical, which is very it has a lot of impact on when we have both the methods, that is empirical and non-empirical method. So here I will take you to the next this thing part, that is the third part, and we'll start with resources first. So the agency would like to know that wherever I'm working, I'm an employee, the institution has the infrastructure to allow me to do the research work, infrastructure of this to help me to continue to analyze my data, to collect my data, to store my data, and also the infrastructure to and to do the research work. So therefore, the facilities that the institution can provide, or it is available so that the project can be carried out, that is of importance to the agencies. And so it could be in the form of the availability of a computer, it could be the availability of the space, it could be the availability of the students in the institution, and so on. And then, of course, we need the personnel also, that is, who are the people who are going to do the project. So it could be a combination of the principal investigator and the co-investigator, or it could be only the principal investigator who is carrying out the project. So usually, they prefer a collaborative project work, because if it is collaborative, then it becomes easier. So in the sense that suppose in the process, by the time they give the sanction or during the process of sanction also, it could happen that one of the investigators would maybe would leave that particular institution and go to some other institution. So in that case, they would it would be difficult for them to transfer the entire project. So then therefore they would prefer, if two people working from the same institute, they collaborate and they write the project, so that if one person is not there, also has left the institute, has resigned from the institute, the other person can handle or can take over the entire responsibility. And moreover, of course, for a single person also, they would prefer a minor project. They would give grant for a minor project, as in my case they did that, because I was the principal investigator and I was the sole investigator. So they gave me grant for the minor project, because the minor project is only the period is only for 1.5 months, so 1.5 years. So therefore it doesn't take much time for to complete the minor project. Whereas for a major project, they would prefer a collaborative project rather than a project which is handled single-handedly. So it is essential that when we talk about the personnel, we mention the principal investigator and the key personnel involved. And then, of course, we indicate the expertise related to the proposed project. And when we give the bio sketches or the bio data, they should be short, they should be written in 2-3 pages. That is, they have to be relevant only to the present, the publication should be only relevant to the last 5 years. And we are not supposed to go into the detail of the publications or the participation in conferences and workshops. So therefore, that is very important. So now let us move on to the budget justification. The budget justification is very important, because that would determine that whether the amount that you have quoted, that you the support that you want in terms of money, whether it is justifiable or not. So normally, when you write the budget, we have to be absolutely clear. We have to give the specification, we have to give the details of the budget. And of course, it is quite time consuming when you write the budget, because you have to really put a thought to it as to how convincingly you can write the budget, so that if I'm demanding 12 lakhs, if I'm demanding 11 lakhs, so I should be able to give justification as to why I need 11 lakhs. That means on what I'll be spending this 11 lakhs on, or this 12 lakhs on. That is very important. So we divide the budget into different categories. The first category, we are going to talk about the requirement of a research assistant, and that is already given by ICSSR. So they have the format of the budget, and the way they specified that you can also take an assistant, research assistant, who can do the calculations, or they can at least feed the data in your computer. That is very important, because that could be very time consuming. So the salary is also specified, the amount of salary that can be given to the personnel, that is also specified in the website of ICSSR. And then you have the travel allowance. So for if you're doing a field work study, you need to travel from one place to another. And if you have selected a large area, just like I selected in Navi Mumbai, so I have to travel to different colleges. So I require the travel expenses. So I have to specify on which date I'll be traveling, how many times in a week that I'll be traveling to this particular college. I have to specify the to and fro rate has to be calculated, and that has to be put into. And then I also talk about the equipment. If I require a particular equipment in order to analyze the data, that also has to be justified. So the first time when I'm writing a proposal to a particular agency, I can talk about that I need a computer. But every time I write a proposal, I cannot state that I want a computer for the institute, because then ICSSR will not approve the budget, and they will merely think that I'm just taking the money in order to buy the equipment for the institution. institution, it's not that the institution is not capable of buying that particular equipment. So I can only quote for a computer, a request for a computer the first time when I'm applying to the particular agency, and I cannot repeat this request again and again. If I don't need any equipment, I can talk about the software that I require in order to analyze the data. So that is very important. And some of the softwares are free, but some of the softwares you need to pay money. So therefore, we can always write the cost of the software over here. And then, of course, we have the journals. We have to refer to books, and we have to refer to articles also. And some of the articles, if we are, even online, some of the articles are not available. We have to pay money for it, a price for it. And so therefore, that price also can be quoted over here. Again, there is a limit for every parameters. The agency, they have a limit. Beyond that limit, you cannot quote, and accordingly we can move ahead. If on the other last part is the contingency part, where we can include the paper that we require, all the sort of stationery, the postage charges, or any other additional cost related to the contingency part that could be included over here. Now, when we write the budget, we have to be very clear about it, various aspects. And of course, we need to also include the overhead that the institution will getting, overhead charges for the institution. And when I submitted my proposal at that point of time, and it was 7.5 as overhead charges. It was indicated in the format of the proposal. Now, of course, the charges have been cut down. It is 5.5 overhead charges for the institution. So that is very important. We need to add that also when we are writing the budget. Now, let us move on to the next part, that is the references. Then the references, again, it will be specified by the agency that our references should be written in which particular format. So we have different formats over here. We have the APA format, that is the American Psychological Association. This format is there. And then we have the Modern Language Association format, that is the MLA format. And of course, we have the Chicago Manual format. And this is what is expected by ICSSR. ICSSR who would like everybody to write in the Chicago Manual format. What I normally do is that once I'm doing the background and I'm referring to the various contribution of the researchers, I make a note of the name of the researcher, the full name of the researcher, the title of the topic, the journal where they're published, the year of publication, the page numbers. I make a note of it and keep it with me. So when I have to write by references and I have to write in a particular format, I actually go to Google, and we have a free citation generator. So when you go to that website, you can just include all the information that you have written it down, and automatically it will be put in that format. So you need not worry about whether you have put a comma here or a full stop there, or you haven't put the year of publication or something. Where do you need to put the year of publication? You don't need to bother about all that factors. So with this, I move on to the next part, that is the unsolicited proposal. So I complete with solicited proposal. Now the unsolicited proposal, as I told you, they are basically, written, to organizations whereby the customer doesn't demand, for a need for the proposal. The customer doesn't advertise for the need for a proposal. You have decided to sell your product. You want to sell your services, and therefore you identify a problem in such a way so that the organization will accept the existence of the problem, and then you offer the product that you want to sell as a solution. So it is called as unsolicited proposal. So unsolicited proposal, it is not response to RFP, and it is submitted to an agency, no doubt, and it has to be absolutely new and innovative idea, and it has to be independently originated, and it has to be prepared without government supervision. And of course, the next part is that the justification for government support is required, and it is beneficial to the agency's research and development. And of course, it should not address a previously published agency requirement, and it should not be an advanced government proposal. So all these factors that need to be taken into account. So we understand that unsolicited proposal is rather very difficult to write, because it is very difficult to even identify whether the organization will read through a proposal. They may not even look at a proposal. They might just keep it aside. So therefore, we need to convince them about the problem. So the topic has to be generated in such a way, or the topic has to be written in such a way so that you can draw the attention of the readers, or you can draw the attention of the organization towards the topic. You can develop a curiosity in their minds, and thus they will be able to read your proposal, and maybe after they read your proposal, they can even give you the amount, or the they can accept your proposal and give you an acceptance letter. So with this, I would like to end my talk on the first part of the topic, that is writing proposals for research funding. So I will now move on to the next part of my talk, that is filing a patent.